Welcome to the Bee Student Podcast, and thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Betsy Gardner, and on this podcast, we explore the bee side to people's records, the things that make them special, that make them tick, and to help them supersize their talent in both business and influence. This week, I'm in London, England, where I used to live, and I want to present to you my B-side, which is the way London informs and inspires me. I'm always asked, what are my top 10 favorite things to do and places to go here? So I thought I'd get that kicked off, and then I'm going to go into a little bit of a background on what I learned while I lived here and how my experience living here changed me. Travel is a wonderful thing. As Mark Twain said, travel is fatal to prejudice and bigotry. It's a way that we get out of our echo chambers. It's a way that we expand our minds, hopefully create bigger curiosity muscle, and enables us to tolerate differing points of view, something I think the whole world could use a bit more of just now. So if I'm in London, I'm always going to go to these places, and hopefully they will not make you feel like a tourist when you're here. My can't miss museums, I am kind of a culture vulture, are always, and if I can only go to one, the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is a museum dedicated to the decorative arts. I'm also a big fan of the Tate Modern for its architecture, the Wallace Collection, especially because of its American pedigree, and the Royal Academy of Art. You know, you've probably heard about the British Museum and the Museum of Natural History, and those places are absolutely riven with treasures. But I love going to these places that are a little bit lesser known and have some really inspiring objects and collections. So hopefully that will be an inspiring museum recommendation for you. Similarly, and number two, West End Theater is iconic, and certainly the plays that are being put on there are world class. But I'm also a huge fan of the Old Vic Theater, which is over in Waterloo. Top tier performances in a charming kind of Victorian era theater, little cozy theater. It just makes this place very special and kind of off the beaten path. So recommend taking in a show there. You know, we all love Zara for its fashion-forward nature and for the price points. But to go to a Zara in a big city is a very big challenge. They're usually really crowded, long queues in the dressing room, etc. So if you go to London and you want to take in Zara, go to the one in the Duke of York Square, which is right in Chelsea. You'll have the full collection without as many crowds, and the setting is really lovely. You can get a coffee, have a wander around, even take in the Saatchi Gallery if you need more culture. Number 4. Get an iconic martini at the Duke's Hotel. My martinis there are second to none. Really big iconic moment in Piccadilly, in St. James's Place, in Mayfair, and I don't think you'll regret getting a martini at Duke's. Next, there are so many wonderful parks throughout London. Unlike New York, that has the giant Central Park and a huge singular focus of park, there are lots of parks throughout London, tons of parks to recommend. But my favorite is Holland Park. There's an adventure playground there, gorgeous Japanese gardens, amazing ruins of a stately home there, and it's just really conveniently located near Kensington Palace, right on High Street, Kensington, easy to get to. Number 6, shopping on Marylebone High Street. It's in the northern part of London near Regent's Park, has an amazing edit of retail shops and restaurants, and just offers something a little bit different and off the beaten path. Number 7, still over in the Piccadilly area, the Burlington Arcade. It's just a little throughway with a bunch of little stores, but very curated items. And if you go all the way through the Burlington Arcade, you'll get to the other side where you could go have a bite at Cicconi's. Before you get into the Burlington Arcade, you could go over to Green Park and experience that as well. In the same part of town and also focused on food is the opportunity to go to the iconic Fortnum and Mason, where they're known for making these beautiful Christmas hampers, having amazing teas, preserves, lemon curd, all beautifully presented. I would also recommend hitting up any of the Dishoom restaurants if you want some really inspired Indian food. A little bit further afield is a very special place in Richmond Park, the Michelin-starred Petersham Nursery, which is a active nursery where you could buy plants, but you can also get an amazing meal there. Another Michelin-starred place that's off the beaten path is in Fulham, the Harwood Arms Pub is a Michelin-starred restaurant in a super casual setting where you could just rock up in jeans and enjoy a memorable meal there too. I'm a huge fan of public transport. I love using the tube to get around London, and there are many inspiring tube stations that themselves are testaments to great design and architecture. If you want to just head over to the Westminster tube station, not only is it going to feel like you're in a Star Wars movie, but to emerge from the tube station, which is so modern, is a really interesting juxtaposition to when you emerge from it and you're around the Houses of Parliament, Westminster Abbey, and Big Ben. So very touristy, but still iconic London. So that's my top 10 list of things to do. Living here was a completely transformational experience for my family and me. And even though I was born in America, I feel that I was reborn when I moved to London. I was 40 years old when I got here, and I had very high hopes for what I might be able to learn and understand better and differently as a result of living here. But I had no idea the amazing level of transformation that was going to happen for me while I lived here. I showed up as a fully American version of myself. Some of my friends here say it was like meeting Ted Lasso when I arrived here. I have an outsized personality, and that was even more poignantly felt when it was set in a context of a European experience where people are more reserved. They take a little bit longer to get to know. They're a little more cautious about who they let in. And I'm grateful that my friends here let me in. Even though they took a little bit longer to know, they ended up being some of the most loyal and meaningful friendships of my life. And I really, the longer I'm around, the more I study people, both through this podcast and in the book I'm working on and in my work, I realized that being curious is one of the greatest superpowers that we can have. And when I think about the B-side to my record, I think showing up with curiosity is one of the most valuable things you can possibly do. It's certainly a prerequisite if you're going to leave your country and move to another one. And what's so great about showing up in another country with other people who've left their countries is that it requires a level of curiosity about that culture to even move there. So I was able to be put into an advanced level program, so to speak, of curiosity just by moving to another country. I had to learn how people did things here. How did they have things delivered to their home? How did they spend time? What did they cook? Where did they travel? How did they spend leisure time? Where did they like to go? What did they like to do? How did their political system work, either for them or not so much for them? And so being able to really be curious and understand what sits underneath what people say they're about into really what they are about is what helped me become more curious. As we cut deeper and deeper grooves into the algorithmic echo chambers of our existence, where we're spoon-fed every day something we know an algorithm knows that we like, we need to show up with more and more curiosity to go outside of those echo chambers and silos and learn more about how other people might approach things, maybe to not feel so isolated and lonely, but also to be better practitioners of what we do. So as we think about being more curious, there's a prerequisite to that I think the European lifestyle maybe does on an outsized level a bit better than America is designed for. America is fast and everything's biased to speed and volume. The European way is a bit more focused on slowing down and savoring things, about buying one quality thing instead of 5 cheap and cheerful items. And so learning to slow down and savor is something that my experience in Europe taught me, for which I'm deeply grateful. It certainly has helped me practice my curiosity skill better. And slowing down and savoring for me can take a number of shapes. First, it's about sometimes centering myself with a really beautiful cup of coffee in the morning and a journal entry, which is one of the things I learned to practice when I lived here. Making that ceremony of your morning beverage something really beautiful and curatorial, so that you feel that you've done something that's a product of self-care to start out with. And then making sure that food is fresh and beautifully and very simply prepared. My Italian friends taught me that buying fresh produce and just putting some olive oil and some really nice cracked salt and pepper on top of it is sometimes the easiest and best way to experience really fresh seasonal flavors. We don't have to put lots of heavy, creamy sauces on things for them to be delicious. The other way I love to slow down and savor is going to my recommendation of a martini at Duke's. Sitting with a friend and enjoying a cocktail and taking your time with it, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, just spending time savoring something with a lot of flavor that's beautiful and enables you to press pause and really connect with the person that you're with. Naturally, I love to slow down and savor when I'm entertaining, which is one of my very favorite things to do. Curating a menu, setting the table, picking the fresh flowers, pairing the desserts, the starters, the mains, figuring out what wines to serve help me to slow down and savor so that I can make sure my guests can then slow down and savor as well. And I guess that leads to the next thing, which is to make things as pretty as we possibly can. There's so much conflict and desperation in our world now, and it's important now more than ever to make things as pretty as they can possibly be. That means maybe tying a little ribbon on a napkin or doing that extra step to add another piece of jewelry to your outfit, or putting a pocket square in for men, making something just that little bit extra special so that we can slow down and savor. I think that's one of the other wonderful things that I learned in Europe is to celebrate beauty. Certainly in the form of art, in parks, in the natural environment, in the food that's here, in the wine that's available, but also to take that practice into our own lives and train the challenge to make things pretty onto ourselves to enable us to have more joy and meaning out of our lives. I got intentional about how I dressed when I lived here. And today I'm wearing a very kind of London-centric outfit that I probably wouldn't wear back in Florida. But I learned how to dress in capsules. And I'm so excited about one of the episodes we're going to bring you will be focused on how you can build a really meaningful wardrobe that works for you by celebrating capsules anchored into single colors like navy blue, black, gray, brown, etc. I had to develop wardrobe capsules here because my closet was so small. American closets are these vast, wonderful places, and I didn't have that here. And at first it felt really challenging to think about how to have enough things to wear in a closet so small. What it taught me, though, is to be more intentional about what I buy so that it carries over into lots of different applications. It does heavy lifting across the wardrobe instead of being a one-hit wonder in my wardrobe. I also require myself to get rid of something for every new thing I buy. So I have to weigh that price is not just what the item costs, but it's what it's going to cost for the item I have to remove from my wardrobe in order to make that fit. My closet is a lot bigger now back in America, but I still practice wardrobe capsuling and one in and one out as lasting ramifications of the disciplines I had to use living in Europe. One of the things I realized when I lived in London is it's a heaving city full of millions of people, and I got to hear 7 languages just walking my daughter to school in the morning at least. And it reminded me that the world is big, But living in London also reminded me that the world is small. We're so connected. There's so many opportunities for people to see what we're doing on our social media and through other media outlets that it's easy to feel that the world is small. We have to challenge ourselves to create critical tension between how both big and small the world is. We want to keep it big enough to inspire us so that we can innovate, but we also want to keep it small enough to feel that we belong somewhere. This crisis of belonging is affecting our whole culture, and we need to make sure that we've been really curatorial about the communities that we're building, whether they're based on affinities like video games or books we love to read, or whether they're based on geographies or just friendships. It's very important to be thinking about how we're tackling the crisis of loneliness, how we're creating intentionally communities that make us feel connected and whole. This is an important step going forward into a world that's becoming more and more automated and more technologically driven by AI. We have to be creating these rich, fertile senses of community moving into this environment. And that's going to help us stay big and supersize what we do in this tension that exists between both big and small. But we have to be building those contextual communities as well. The other thing I learned when I lived here is that you can hold space to love two things at the same time. As we're moving out of a bigger and bigger emphasis on binary systems, what I love about Gen Z is we already know that they don't see the world through a binary lens. They're not interested in black and white, gay and straight, this or that. They're really interested in creating win-win models. And what I loved about living here is I got to be fully American, but I also got to be really a part of me, got to be British. And I loved that, even though I will never talk like someone who's from England, or I won't fully express a fully English experience. There were ways that England changed me, and I'll never be the same. And I'm glad about that. I care about what happens to both countries. If it comes down to it, I'll always pick America first, but I love both countries equally and in a way that I think enhances my patriotism to both of them. I know that the one experience I had living here is that I became more patriotic about how much I love America by spending time away from it. It gave me the space to reflect on what makes it great and also the ways I could show up for it better as an expatriate abroad. And so that was a really key and transformational moment for me in expressing my Americanness, but also welcoming the European part of my life. I didn't put it to sleep or lay it down in a grave when I left Europe. I bring European elements into what I do and how I live, and that's been a really key thing for shaping the way I see the world and creating space for people and cultures that are different from me, which I think has been a superpower for me in business. I hope that it's a superpower for those of you who are listening. When we make more room for people to belong, especially for people who don't look like us, sound like us, or have our background, we have the opportunity to create more business opportunities. And so staying curious, learning how to slow down and savor, and creating spaces to be in an and model instead of an or model means that we've got more opportunities to connect, to network, and to create innovative capacity and opportunities. So these key things were things I took from the discipline of living in Europe that I will never leave behind. They have shaped me in ways that I will never forget. And the people that informed so much of these experiences, I went through the most difficult season of my life living here. My marriage ended and my mother passed away, and I went through a passage of grief that was at many times almost unbearable. And it was my European friends that stepped up for me, that took care of me, that did basic things like making sure I ate something because I was so anxious that I couldn't eat. People who just took me under their wing and made sure I had something to do on the weekend, that my kids were looked after, that every little thing that really is the artifact of disaster was something I needed help with. And these wonderful people forgot that I came from a different nation. It wasn't a barrier between us. It was a moment of need that they met with their generosity and their kindness and their loyalty to me, that I've tried to bring forward into the rest of my life, to look out for the people, especially the ones that are new to my world or come from a different place than I do. Thinking about what their needs might be and what their journey might be has changed my life completely. So you know who you are if you're one of the people who sustained me during this difficult time. Thank you for the amazing ways that you cared for me and helped create the person that I am today. I lead a life of enormous satisfaction and fulfillment because of the crucible moment that I went through here, which is a place in which I found the adult version of me that serves me so well today. So if you are in one of those places where you're far away from home and things are tough, surround yourself with a community of people who can show up and be that difference maker for you the way people were for me. If you haven't visited London, do it. It's a wonderful global city and it's my second home. And I'm going to share my last London hack, which is pretty basic and simple, but I'm going to talk about the role of champagne in my life. I wasn't a big consumer of bubbles prior to coming over to London. And, I figured out very fast that people don't have open cocktail bars in their homes as much as they do in America and London. But what they do have is abundant bottles of bubbles, whether it's cava or prosecco or champagne itself. And there was something that happened for me when I started drinking champagne more often. It helped me to slow down and savor, and it helped me to celebrate those moments in my life that really deserved a Tuesday night celebration. Sometimes wonderful things happen on a Tuesday, and we should be opening the champagne on a Tuesday night when they do. It will help improve the quality of your life and help you slow down to savor. So that's one of my top European takeaways. I hope that these have been helpful for you. We hope that our time over here on the Be Student Study Abroad episodes will enrich your life, your performance, your existence. And we're so excited for the community we're building through this podcast. We hope that you'll like, share, and subscribe to future episodes and today's episode of the Be Student Podcast. Appreciate you joining me on this journey and hope to see you on our next episode of the Be Student.